Ron Frost, what is the good word? So, thanks for joining me. We are excited to be here to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. What?
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence? Yeah, if you think about sales and people who want to grow in sales, Ron, there's all kinds of things that these are the lines that you need to have. So, welcome,
Yeah.
Ron. What's your thought on all of this?
Oh, absolutely, Harry. This is probably one of the most important topics. Emotional intelligence being a very important topic, but within emotional intelligence, the foundation is to know yourself. Everything in your outer world is a reflection of what's going on in your inner world. So, if fundamentally you believe that sales is difficult, you're going to show up to a world where sales are difficult. If you have a if you're like, everybody's a jerk or this call is gonna go bad, or if this is the thing that's been repetitively going on in your mind, you need to be able to be aware of that. And you know what? Life does introduce us to certain things that we're fearful of, right? And fear is a big protector, right? It can help us out in certain situations. It can also bring up that constant mind chatter of being in a defeative mindset, and we really don't want to go into a sales conversation or developing connection and rapport if we don't kind of look within. We don't kind of understand ourself on that level because I know as I've gotten older, I've gotten probably better at this, but we all carry some sort of an emotional baggage or trauma or triggers or things that we bring into every conversation. So it's very important topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. As I'm playing with different screens as you're speaking, I apologize, but part of my emotional intelligence is to confess my sin as to why I was distracted. But I just wanted to see if there's any chats that pop up. So yeah, so just this understanding about who we are, what kind of challenges we face. I remember speaking to someone who was in sales at the time. I don't know if they still are, but they said something along the lines, "I don't even like people."
Yeah.
And the person was clearly in it for money. So as
Yeah.
you look at personalities that succeed in sales, very frequently you see the ones that have endured and are the best performers are the ones that really love people. The ones that are in it for money seem to come and go. And if they could just learn a little bit more about where the value is for understanding why they just want the money and they're going through people like a hot knife on butter, if I can pull up that expression.
Yep.
But if you just stop and reflect a little bit about these types of things, is that what you ultimately desire will come by doing the right things. But if you
Absolutely.
just pursue the money, you're there's no shortcuts because you got to trample all over people, and that's really not what prospects and clients are looking for these days.
Oh,
Thoughts?
absolutely. Yeah, and the whole thing around money is we know that maybe money may be the object that we know we need to have to live by. It's also the outcome of living an authentic life, being true to yourself, treating people well, and knowing what it means to really be of service, whether it's in the area of sales or any other similar area, that if you do that really, really well and you add value into people's lives, that this other area called money happens. It just happens. And I know that's a difficult thing because so many people they get desperate and they've got a lot going on in their life and sometimes they just want to kill the sale, right? And it comes across that way. And I know, you know, I've been probably there's times I can't point the finger out at anybody else without realizing it. There's been times probably I've been that way too.
No, no, no way.
Back when I had hair in my head.
Yeah,
When
yeah, me too. Once in a while, maybe.
Yeah, but it's Harry, I think when we realize that when it comes down to our innermost emotions and where we are at with those, as well as our thoughts and beliefs, because they go together, that if we if we are mindful of what we bring into conversations, because we have these lower emotions, which is fear, worry, and doubt, shame, guilt, blame, right? The higher ones are what would be compassion, empathy, love. I know there's a whole emotional
Yeah.
scale, but either way, as long as we know, is there something in going on in our life that maybe we need to address? It may be an old pattern that surfaces the moment somebody cuts us off on the highway or whatever, or we're feeling in a complete rush, or our sales manager is really down on us because we've had a last month and we're in that fear state. But when we know that we control the essence of who we are, how we think, how we behave, our emotional, and what we bring into that conversation, that's really golden there. But it starts with knowing yourself. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think about some examples where knowing yourself, being cut off in traffic. We talked about the money pursuits and so forth, but some things that come to mind when it comes to knowing yourself is just the mood that you're in at the moment. And
Yeah.
sometimes this is not always easy, right? Because our minds go a million directions. We've got thoughts. I don't know what the numbers are, but there's a lot of thoughts every second that are traveling through our mind. And, sometimes those thoughts are negative, sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're just completely neutral. But if we're in sometimes, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes I get in a funk and
Yeah.
I may not be aware of it. And then having a conversation, my wife may say something and I kind of give her a look and she'll say, "Well, what's up with you?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, I guess I must be in a little, right? That's all you need, or that's all I need is to say, something's awry, that I'm in some kind of funk. Sometimes I feel it. Sometimes I'm just not doing what I feel like I should be doing. Well, if I'm in that mindset, I'm not going to reach out on a very important opportunity and just go right from there. My first thing is I'm going to work on what's going on, right? If
Sure.
I have to watch a YouTube video that gets me fired up, if I have to listen to music that gets me fired up, something, maybe go for a walk, something to get me out of the funk, then
Yeah.
I'm in a better position to serve versus kind of being a little bit cranky and maybe I'm a little bit short to the point. And that's not necessarily the position you want to be in when you're making a sales call or speaking to someone about an important opportunity. What's your thought?
Yeah, no, you're right. If you can at least, I mean, we're all rushed for time and we're on schedules, and sometimes we have appointments that have previously been set, and we really have to show up the best that we can. But you're right. There's times when we need to really take care of the self,
Mhm.
and and I now remember that quote because it had to do with meditation, and I believe meditation is not just sitting with your eyes shut with a candle going om. It could just be taking a moment, walking out to nature and just sitting quietly, right? Just taking a couple of deep breaths. And sometimes we need to do that. And it was an interesting speech that I had heard a while ago. And it was from Warren Buffett, who we know is a very wealthy person. And somebody asked him for like financial advice. Basically, he's like, what is that daily habit that you would recommend? And he had mentioned meditation because I guess he practices it himself
Mm.
because he clears his mind. He wants to come to the world, each morning to the world fresh, without worries, wants to be able to have conversations with people that he's open and listening. And he wants to be mindful of being able to not bring too much emotion into decisions around money. And so the funny thing was the guy goes, no, 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 I want to know something that's going to help me financially. And he leaned in and he said, meditation.
Right.
Just take a pause, be in nature, just quiet your mind. Maybe, maybe don't try to rush into that next opportunity if you're not ready. And to your point, I had, going back, I was coaching a salesperson, I flew out and I maybe didn't spend some role playing time that I probably should have and thought maybe that, he was already calling on people and we just were out knocking on doors. It was business to business type of sales we were doing. And quite often, we weren't going through the door to land a sale.
Mhm.
We're going through the door to maybe meet the owner or decision maker and shake a hand, say hello, exchange business cards, and we could always follow up. And also, it's one of those things is like, if they're busy, that's okay. Or if they've got customers, that's okay. It wasn't about trying to get a sale. It was just trying to connect and hopefully get a business card or a name that you could follow up with.
Mhm.
And didn't go that way, Harry. We
What
walked
happened?
we Yeah, when we walked in and he's, wherever he was mentally at that moment,
The
and
owner or
the
your
person I
associate?
was coaching,
Okay. Yeah.
again, my fault. I didn't do any
Yeah. Of
we didn't
course.
do any role play or and he walks in and they had just this thing where the ego was more present and the person wasn't present. That we all have
Mhm.
that defense mechanism we put on, and quite often men do it more than women, but it is definitely a pair where I think he interrupted. There was a customer there. He stepped forward. Number one, you don't do that. You wait for that. That's their bread and butter. They got to make
Mhm.
money. You don't want to cut your customer off, right?
Right.
And then he barges in, and of course, I think he starts to cut off the conversation, and it got to a point where probably should have been respectful and backed off. It didn't go well. It turned out to where the guy actually ripped his business card in front of the trash can. We walk out like, how did that go? Right. So part of that is learning these lessons about it is important to really know that if you've got something going on in your life, if you've got stress, if you have something that maybe read a great sales book at that moment, or maybe call on the favorite customer that you always get along with that just cheers you up, or somebody in your life that cheers you up, right? I'd probably call
Yeah.
you, Harry. So
Well, and that's such a interesting experience. I have seen my share of those. But so with that whole experience,
yes,
if we just break it down and say, well, I get what you're saying is like you're falling on the sword. There's things we could do better as a leader and so forth. But sometimes we just, things throw us off, right? So in a moment like that, where it's really challenged, I've been in them. I've been thrown out of places before. Me being in a cranky mood, the owner of a store, whatever, a print shop, wherever I was calling on, being in a cranky mood, emotions collide. There's an explosion. I'm walking out, and that person never wants to see me again. I mean, it's
yeah,
happened once or twice. That doesn't happen a lot. It hasn't happened a lot, but it does happen, right? Because it's just the nature of the thing with people interacting. So as we mature, and I think the key thing on all of this, Ron, is that self reflection. Sometimes people get pretty emotional, especially when they view us as every other type of salesperson.
yes,
And when they say things like, all you salespeople are like, I know the hair on the back of my neck, if I had any hair on the back of my neck, would stand up when people compare me to every other salesperson. It is, it's, they know what they're doing, right? They're saying it in a derogatory way. There's nothing positive about that statement. They're viewing salespeople as liars, phonies, all after the money. I think, right? See, I have the perception as to what they think, but I don't really know. So
Yeah,
I could be saying all this based on my own perception, and then it could that's where the collision can take place.
we are
Yeah.
all like,
Yeah.
right? We're all bald. Right? So, no, you're have we, though, done that where we maybe pigeonholed somebody
Oh,
because of maybe their
yeah.
role or their
Yep.
title? And I get it because, so many people have been getting those phone calls during dinner time, but that person on the other end is doing what they were told to do, but they fall in the same category as a salesperson, yet we know the realm of sales, depending on the product or the service, or if they're an inside or an outside salesperson, or some people who are maybe more technical sales versus another type of sale. So we all can get labeled as the salesperson. And sometimes even when you go, regardless of where you're connecting, whether it's in person, over the phone, or today virtually, there's a lot of virtual sales conversation. The best thing that we can do is we can't control the belief of the other person, but we can choose to be open, willing to share, provide a platform for them to speak, be a good listener, ask the right questions. And after a while, within a certain amount of time, people say, well, this guy here is not like what I thought, right? There's a little bit of an
Yeah.
adjustment there. And I think part of that again is being comfortable in your own skin, knowing
Right.
yourself. Maybe even knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
They just are very good at having empathy in the moment. And they maybe have had a lot of rejection, so they're okay.
Mhm.
And I think this happens as you get older. So if any of you are out there and you've been just entering the world of sales, know that patience builds over time. But allowing somebody to and even when your assumption may be totally wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
all salespeople are the same way, is tough to do, but it's probably you're gaining rapport at that moment
Yeah. Totally.
because you didn't run, you didn't react, you didn't flip them off,
Yeah.
you you didn't give them half a peace sign, right?
Right. Right. Well, I've been in those situations where the person's apologized afterwards
Yes,
just by remaining calm. And then you've got, you know, if leverage is the right word, upper hand, but you're in a position now where there's more respect for you than a lot of other people that might have retaliated like from like. Right? So just
absolutely.
by being a mild mannered person. Now, again, I don't want to you guys to think that I'm always mild mannered because I have blown, a gasket once or twice and regretted it. But the thing is, after you do that, that's where you got to self reflect and say, what the heck was that about? Right. And so then you just got to just look inward and commit that I'm not going to do that again. And oh, by the way, I've done it again and we all have. We've had arguments with family members, kids, spouses,
Yep,
coworkers, people on the sales team, you name it. We just want to continue to work on it, recognize it, continue to make improvement. And this is the lifelong learning that you were talking about earlier, I think, is that it's not just one and done. We don't ever really achieve this type of nirvana. It's something that we're constantly working on. Do you want to expand on that a little, Ron?
yeah. So we've all probably heard this psychologist say we're predeterminedly wired by the age 7 of our beliefs and our reactions and the way we see the world and our emotions. And if we believe that's true, then we might as well give up. We can't learn beyond that. But we know it's not. And there's so many things. I've been through radical forgiveness work where I've done gratitude work. I mean, if you do a gratitude journal, that shifts you right there. Like
Mm,
going back to when you say you have a bad day, if you spend time in gratitude, you always have something grateful for,
mhm.
and you can't help can't you can't be in fear and gratitude at the same time. The two opposite emotions. You can't be in anger and gratitude. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And then, of course, I don't like the word affirmations. I'm more about positive self-talk because I do it a little differently.
Hmm.
I don't like, you hear "Oh, I am rich. I am rich. I'm a millionaire." Oh, no, I'm not. Like, your mind is constantly, you know, backing up from those statements. But you can say, "This is going to be a great sales call." You can say, instead of saying, "I'm going to get a sale," I'm going to connect well. You can come out of an awful one, say, "You know what? Maybe there's something I can gain from this. Maybe I can learn from this.
Yeah.
Maybe there's actually." Years ago in Baltimore, Maryland, I did get thrown out. So you just raised this memory in me. And I was mindful. I didn't shout back. I was, kind of like respectfully exited and realized timing wasn't right, but I did it politely. And by the time I got back home later that evening, I actually had to go out for a drink. I was like, oh, listen, oh no. And then I called people back at the office and they're like, "Oh yeah, we know we all been thrown out. We know who
Yeah.
that is." Right.
Yeah.
So
It's funny.
yeah, because they sent me right, because they probably all well, my boss the next day was like, "Yeah, he placed a pretty sizable order. Thank you." And part of that, going back to what you said, is the dynamic of where somebody's apologized and felt guilty. Now his apology wasn't what I would call an apology. But he instantly became respectful to me every
Mm.
time I stopped by, and he would call me now and then, and I realized that there's certain people that need the upper hand, and sometimes they need that one moment in time to let you know that they have that upper hand,
Yep.
and they're few and far between, and I can sometimes, like, look at some of those people and say, "I'm actually," you know, connect well with those people. Maybe not in the first time I walk through the door like I did that time, but I think part of that is just kind of knowing your strengths, knowing yourself, and knowing that even though psychologists say we're stuck at the age 7 for the rest of our life, we are forever developing and growing emotionally, spiritually, in so many different ways. And emotional intelligence is one of the big ones.
Ron, this has been a blast. I appreciate the conversation. And where can people find more of you, my friend?
Oh, thanks, Harry. Yeah, my website is www.ronaldfrost.com, or my phone number is 239-265-4380. There you go.
So thank you, Ron. We'll do it again. It's been a blast. Good stuff.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you for listening to Sales Made Easy. If you found value in our conversations, please subscribe and leave a review. Our goal is to provide practical strategies for growing your business while staying true to your values. Remember, success in sales is about serving your clients. Serve first, and the selling will follow. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep serving and providing value to others. Good things will happen.